Hello and welcome to an emergency podcast in association with K&N Air Filters, who are brilliant at servicing emergency air filter situations, especially when a team principal of a Formula One team has just building. It's a real emergency because earlier today, the biggest piece of F1 news for years has dropped. Christian Horner has left Red Bull. I hesitant to say he's been sacked because I have not read enough news stories to get this right. I don't know whether he left by mutual consent, whether he was fired, or what the exact legal term was, but he's gone. He's the longest serving F1 team principal. He's won 8 world championships, and frankly, his record stands any scrutiny. He did a phenomenal job. But as we know, 18 months ago, things went a bit wrong. And we ended up with Neil Clifford creating a sticker on our WhatsApp group that gets used far too often and has caused far too much trauma. Chris Cooper, you'll love this. Chris Cooper has got on the train and stood outside the gates to F1's Red Bull factory in the UK. He'll be moved on fairly quickly. Chris Cooper, from the studio, how does it feel on the ground?
Well, I don't think this is a moment for sound bites, but I do feel the hand of Spartacus Mills once again on my shoulder when I say it seems clear now that Christian Horner, Oliver Mintzlaff, and Helmut Marko have been involved in some kind of dropping incident. It's hot and sticky here today, Milton Keynes. I suspect there's a conditions familiar to the recently departed chief executive, going by the leaked telephone records and photographs and text from just over a year ago. It feels calm here. I'm just at the entrance to the factory. You can see a security gate there. The campus is behind me. Just sort of over there, you can see. People are coming and going. The staff just starting to leave the shift. I got here a few minutes ago. I saw a security guard picking up what looked to me like maybe 1 or 2 rubberized finger coverings. But apart from that, there's no real evidence that Christian was ever here today or has left. So it's a beautiful day. The business is going on just as it was before.
Managed. Was this inevitable, or did you think he'd actually survived what was a remarkably targeted scenario where I think all of us thought he was a goner in March 2024, but somehow he stuck it out? Was it inevitable it would get him in the end?
No, I don't think it was at all. And I think Christian comes from that Bernard Eccleston school of you tough it out. You just tough it out, you tough it out. He was Bernie's boy, if you remember, when Dietrich Mateschitz bought the team. And Christian was very much part of it. And there's 20 massive years of success. And it's funny, I was speaking to Finley a little bit earlier today. And we think ultimately this comes down to one of 2 things. Has Max Verstappen left? Has he said, that's it, I'm going? And that's precipitated this, because losing Rob Marshall, Jonathan Wheatley, Adrian Newey, being 4th in the championship, that's all just not good stuff. But then if Max has gone, look, I'm leaving, that's it. That's press this button. Or is it totally the other way around? Has the Verstappen, Marko, Mintzlaff camp finally managed to force Christian out, and that means that Max is staying, in which case he's played one of the greatest games of poker known in Formula One racing, and actually, if you really think about it, caused the departure of Lewis Hamilton from Mercedes, because Toto would only give him a 1-year contract. He wanted a 2-year contract, and that 2-year contract would have seen him through 2026. So has Max played an absolute blinder and wrong-footed everybody, or is Max about to be Toto's lapdog, and if he could be one, and precipitated Christian's departure? Who knows? But so exciting.
Good God, I asked you to simplify the situation there, man. You just totally twisted my brain with different scenarios. Neil Clifford, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think in these circumstances, we should, and we've had a bit of fun with this, haven't we? But actually, it's time to celebrate Christian, in my view.
Yeah.
He's been one of the most successful, if not the most successful. Actually, I put it into ChatGPT, and it said that Toto Wolff is the most successful team principal of all time. If you add up drivers' championships and the other one,
Constructors.
constructors. But nevertheless, what has he been there 20 odd years? You say, Chris, won tons of. He built the team from nothing. Frankly, he's done an amazing job. He's probably one of the most hardworking. I've never met him, but I can just imagine that he's first one in, last one out. A total grinder of, probably an inappropriate adjective there. Just super successful, driven, hardworking, clever, tenacious guy that's done an amazing job. British guy, British team. Are they British team? I'm never sure. Austrian team? They're in England.
Austrian racing license, English, British.
Yeah, I'd say they were British team, for sure.
Yeah.
Employed hundreds, if not 1,000 people, done an
1,000
incredible job.
Couple thousand with the engine.
Yeah, we should celebrate his
Totally.
success, to be honest.
Yeah, we totally should. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Sorry, Chris, you go on.
No, carry on.
So the interesting thing will be: did they react? It feels like it could be a straight performance issue. They got fed up, worried about losing Max, or it could be that they got wind of: is he going to go to Ferrari? Let's get in our exit first. Who knows? It is very, very interesting. A number of scenarios could play out.
Could you see him at Ferrari, Chris?
You could see anything in Formula One.
Yes, I guess.
I've had several notes on Instagram from people who are probably more connected to this than we are. Instagram's an amazing thing when you start looking at it slide into your DMs. There was one that said from someone that works in that world that said, well, the girl that was involved in this supposed episode, and we have to say we may be laughing, but there's a potentially not very pleasant side to this. The woman that was involved is taking a civil action against Christian that might be heard in the new year, beginning of 26. So surely there must be something in that if he's being booted out now. If you were so sure there was nothing in that, why would you leave now? So I don't know. There's all sorts of things that are potentially possible, but I think I believe the part of Manish's sort of suspected hypothesis, which is that actually the Verstappen lot said, well, we'll stay, but that's one condition on us staying, and it's that he goes. I think that's the most likely one, and I suppose it's also the one I hope for as well, because I don't. Do you know what it was? Wasn't it strange when we all first saw Lewis wearing a red overalls? That actually after the first 10 minutes it looked about right to me.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure I could ever imagine Max wearing other overalls. Is that a fair comment?
that's an interesting comment. Yeah. It's harder to imagine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I've met Jonathan Wheatley a couple of times. Genius. Adrian Newey, clearly Elvis Presley of Formula One. You don't want to lose Max. There's one too many, isn't it? Really. So I'd imagine it is that.
And also, just say about Max. Everybody's sort of talking about how brilliant the Mercedes will be next year, and the engine will be brilliant. They're doing that on the basis that that's what happened last time we had a big engine change. But I would remind people, last time we had a big engine change, it was Ross Brawn who was leading the Mercedes team, and he was on the rule-making committee defining a hole, first of all, and creating a double diffuser and knowing exactly what the rules would be. So Mercedes had the jump. Are they really going to get the jump? If I was Max on 60 million euros a year with a team that I run, why would you jump? You just stay for another year. June, this time next year, he has a little look and he says, I want to go to Mercedes. Guess what? He'll be at Mercedes. Or if he says, I want to go to Ferrari, he'll be at Ferrari. Anyone he wants to go to will take him in a minute. Why would you jump before you see what's going on?
I also think, adding to that, how often does a Formula One driver get to probably reshape a team entirely in his own vision? And, you know, we know that the great legacies and the great sort of winning runs have come from that level of control. And Schumacher and Lewis are probably the two in the modern era that had the opportunity. Is this Max's chance? He's got rid of the last limpet, hasn't he, really? So now it's kind of his.
I mean, my question is, who's going to recruit Christian?
I would put some big money on Alpine, actually, because I can see, I mean, I know Aston Martin's more logical, but Alpine is Briatore running the kind of commercial side, Christian running the sporting side. They're both really big kind of Bernie muckers. I could really see that. I could see that.
Yeah, you're going to give him a job, aren't you? He's a winner.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
He is a winner, but he's a winner who's now got a few black marks against his name. And whether that stops him being as attractive, I don't know. I think actually you're right. In that sport, winning is everything, isn't it? So, Chris Cooper, can we have an update? What's it like? What are the security gates like? Anyone come out and shouted at you? Are you wearing your Monster Energy? What are you doing there?
So it feels remarkably normal. It feels remarkably normal, and I think part of that is the continuity of Laurent Mika's coming in as team principal. I happened to meet him on Friday at the Grand Prix at Silverstone. And funnily enough, I didn't ask him, so what do you think about the chances of you being Red Bull team principal this time next week? That really wasn't on the agenda as a question to ask.
Chris, did he give anything away? Was there any sense, looking back at that, there was a little twitch or some little sense of he knew what was going
it's
on?
funny you should say that, Manish, because I met him with John Ryan, who's the technical, the sporting and safety director in Motorsport UK. He's done it with all his colleagues and this incredible job in organising the British Grand Prix with the BRDC and Silverstone Circuits Limited and all the volunteers involved. I said to John afterwards, he looked remarkably good form. He was very, very happy. He clearly just come off the back of Lawson doing well in Austria. He had a slightly disappointing Grand Prix, so at least because two of them were, they both ended up in the scenery. So, but he didn't give anything away. So I suspect this was relatively new news. But good for him.
He doesn't have any equity, does he?
It's not clear. I suspect not. And the other part of the news, which I think is interesting, so for those who know the sport and are involved in it in the UK, the Racing Bulls team is now being led by Alan Permain. Long time from Team Enstone.
Big time.
Ejected when Otmar lost his job a couple of years ago. So to see Alan Permain at the top of a team in Formula One is a great result.
Massive.
But
yeah.
Neil's right. I think this is a moment of huge celebration. And the Red Bull announcement did seem to recognise that in terms of great and generous thanks and appreciation for Christian.
Yeah.
It could simply be a very, very harsh, we've got to intervene on performance grounds. We need to make a change. He's been here 20 years. I don't know any other non-owner manager, team principal, who's had that length of service. It's unique. So well done, Christian.
Yeah.
He's clearly the best man at the job. So it makes you, as Neil rightly said, someone's going to get the job. Just imagine if he popped up in red. Can you imagine what the lawyers would have to do to protect IP? Can you imagine the IP protection between those two organisations? What Christian would know? I wonder what Ferrari would pay to know that.
Yeah. I think Ferrari would be the wise move for Ferrari.
Well, I love the fact that obviously Vigna was speculatively quoted as saying they weren't entirely close to the idea of replacing the boss of the Formula One team. And I thought to myself, that's a bit rich coming from the bloke that's just facelifted the Roma. I mean, that really is, Jerry. Talk about being judged by your inferiors. I feel a bit sorry for Fred there.
He'll have a 3-year non-compete clause. He doesn't have to work for bloody ages anyway.
Yeah, but this is the other serious side to it. I'm sure Christian is an incredibly hardworking man who's much tougher than most of us. But actually, he is totally conditioned to that paddock. His muscle memory is that he wakes up every year in January and he expects to be in that paddock. Having that removed from you that's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah, agreed.
Can I just say also, Formula One are not going to let him walk away because it's a little bit like Gunther Steiner. There were two people, regardless of their abilities, who effectively bookend Drive to Survive. That show will just not work without him. He is going to have to be pulled back, and that's the end of it. Even if he's next to Brundle commentating every week.
If I was him, I'd just get an FIA hard pass, and I would make sure that I had a very, very hot curry on a Friday night, and I'd lurk around the Mercedes box and just wind Toto up for an entire season. Just go and block the toilets. Why wouldn't you? Now look,
can I make a final note from me here? at the scene. First of all, can I just say, dear the world, can we stop having so many bloody emergencies? Because it's, I've come here literally from the office in London today. That's my briefcase. I've literally got off the train in Milton Keynes. Goodness knows how I'm going to get home. Taxi driver left me ages ago.
No.
But I've been here on the scene, and I'll stay for a little bit longer. If there are any further updates, I'll share them later.
Magic.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chris Wicker. Now, before we leave, I have to ask each of my learned guests the same question, okay? And it's a difficult one, but it has to be done. So I'll start with Neil Carey. Finger
Neil Carey.
Neil Carey? I thought he was a
Sorry,
cameraman.
Neil Clifford. I'll start with. We'll cut that out if we can, please. I know it's a tricky one, but I'm going to ask my learned friends the same question. Neil Clifford, was it a finger or a cock?
It wasn't a finger.
Okay. Chris Cooper, was it a finger or a cock?
I hope it was a finger.
Manish Pandey, bringing up the rear. Was it a finger or a thingy?
Bringing up the rear. How dare you? How dare you?
Was it a finger or a thingy?
All right. My massive medical training and a microscope tells me it was definitely a penis.
Okay. We've covered all ground there.
Hold on, you didn't tell us what you wait.
Oh, it had that was a COCK. That was. There's no doubt. I think we all knew at the time. Now look, thank you so much to my learned friends for coming on here. We've sorted the issue out already. Basically, he's going to Ferrari. He has to go to Ferrari.
Yes.
And thank you to Formula One for providing us with so much theatre. Chris Cooper, you're an absolute legend. The next emergency will be in Addis Ababa next week.
Yeah, that might not be a same-day service.
So there you go. That was an emergency podcast in association with K&N Air Filters. Chris Cooper is now running away from a security guard.